Synopsis of the Books of the Bible. Minor Prophets. By JND Darby. Zechariah. Chapter 2. The re-establishment of Jerusalem and the house, judgment of what was wicked. From Zechariah 2 to the end of chapter 6, the Spirit presents the circumstances, the principles, and the result of the re-establishment of Jerusalem and of the house, and also the judgment of that which was wicked and corrupt. Each chapter has a distinct subject, a vision detached from the others while forming a portion of the whole. The present responsibility, on which the blessing depended, and the sovereign grace that would assuredly accomplish all, are both set before us, each in its place. Jerusalem's restoration, return from captivity and the manifestation of Messiah. The restoration of Jerusalem is described in chapter 2 in a very remarkable manner, which throws much light on the connection, already spoken of, between the return from the Babylonish captivity wrought by Cyrus, the servant, the righteous man from the east, and the deliverance to be granted by the manifestation of the Messiah. First of all, the full and entire restoration of Jerusalem is announced, Jehovah himself being her safeguard, and securing prosperity and peace to her inhabitants, himself, her glory, dwelling in the midst of her. We can easily understand what an encouragement such a promise, and such an interest on the part of Jehovah in Jerusalem, would be to them in their then state, even if the accomplishment were not then brought about. The return under Cyrus not the full accomplishment of God's purposes. Jehovah calls to the people and bids them come forth from the land of the north, an expression used for Chaldea, for they had been scattered to the four winds. The Babylonish captivity was the real sentence of Lo-Ami, as the return thence, Babylon being judged, was the earnest of a better deliverance from that which, in the last days, will represent Babylon. Zion is delivered, from her captivity in Babylon. But if up to a certain point, this took place by means of Cyrus, it was by no means the full accomplishment of God's purposes. They were continuously, and yet are, subject to the heathen image and superscription. And, in a more special manner, the Jews will again be in subjection to that which bears the character of Babylon, and will be delivered from it, but it will be in those days when Jehovah shall manifest himself in glory that will admit of no resistance to his will. After the glory, he will send to the nations that have spoiled Israel. The glory of Jehovah shall appear, and the enemies of his people shall be judged, for he who touches Israel, the beloved of Jehovah, shall bring judgment upon himself in that which is most dear and precious to him. The judgment of the nations shall justify the word of God to his people Israel. Future full blessing. The daughter of Zion should sing with joy, for Jehovah would dwell in the midst of her. Many nations should come and join themselves to Jehovah in that day and should be his people, and he would dwell in the midst of Israel. And then the word of prophecy, the accomplishment of which had been so long suspended that it appeared like a dream of the night, should be justified to Israel by its entire fulfillment. Jehovah should inherit Judah as his portion in the Holy Land, and should again choose Jerusalem. Solemn period. Let all flesh then be silent, for Jehovah has risen up from his holy habitation to accomplish all the good pleasure of his will. We see, that, however great might be the encouragement for the Jews in that day, the mind of the Spirit goes on to the end of the age, and to the manifestation of the glory of Jehovah, and the blessing of Jerusalem and of the whole earth. The return from Babylon, already accomplished historically, was still future as the true deliverance of Zion. All flesh should acknowledge the coming of Jehovah. These were judgments which should take place after the glory,